Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something absolutely fascinating that affects, well, almost every single one of us. We're breaking down how your early life money experiences are quietly and completely dictating your adult investing behavior. If you've ever felt like your portfolio just isn't doing what your logical brain wants it to do, almost like your investments are being secretly managed by a hyperactive child, then you are in exactly the right place. Do you ever wonder why you're terrified to invest, even when the math says you'll win? I mean, it's a heavy realization, but here's the absolute truth. You're not following today's market. You're following a script your 7-year-old self wrote. Those seemingly logical financial choices you agonize over, they're often just emotional echoes from your childhood, heavily disguised as rational adult decisions. So we call this your invisible financial script. Basically, it's a psychological blueprint written decades ago that totally dictates your current risk tolerance and financial behaviors. Think of it kind of like old buggy code running in the background of your brain. We're all unknowingly executing this outdated software, and honestly, it frequently sabotages our modern portfolios because it filters every piece of new financial data right through the lens of what we experienced as kids. Section 1. The scarcity hardware. So we've all heard the phrase, right? Saving for a rainy day. I mean, it sounds responsible, super prudent. But let's completely dismantle this common idiom for a second. When this idea is actually rooted in childhood scarcity, it mutates. It stops being a helpful umbrella and literally turns into a concrete doomsday bunker. It transforms into a self-sabotaging barrier to wealth, keeping you completely trapped in a survivalist mindset rather than a growth mindset. And that survivalist mindset, it leads directly to a phenomenon known as the cash drag. This is the very real psychological cost of holding on to scarcity. You see, you keep your money in idle cash because, well, it feels safe. But in reality, that cash is being actively eaten alive by inflation. You are essentially paying a massive hidden tax just for the comfort of holding on to a childhood safety blanket. We call this the phantom itch. It's this incredible phenomenon where you actively choose safety over logical market growth. And it often happens because of how your parents reacted to past market crashes. Maybe you saw them panic in 2008 or really struggle during a recession. Those memories, they manifest today, causing your brain to literally itch with anxiety during completely normal market fluctuations. Section 2. The excess software. Now, scarcity is only half the picture here. Growing up without financial friction, that creates its own set of dangerous bugs, mainly treating the stock market like a safety net rather than a tool for growth. You see, inherited excess creates a severe lack of financial boundaries. If a person always had a financial cushion growing up, they might treat the market like a casino, where they literally can't lose. So what they probably call investment confidence is actually often just a disguised lack of boundaries. And right here is where that software glitch becomes incredibly dangerous, ignoring modern risk signals and over-leveraging. When an investor feels artificially insulated from failure because of that childhood abundance, they just stop reading the actual data. During extreme volatility, instead of pulling back or reassessing, what do? They double down. They over-leverage recklessly because their internal script is whispering, hey, things always work out fine in the end. So when we place hoarding cash from scarcity trauma right next to over-leveraging from inherited excess, a really vital concept emerges. These behaviors, they are exactly the same thing. I know, they look completely different on a balance sheet, but both are just irrational reactions to an emotional hijacking. Neither relies on current market logic. Both rely on a script that was written decades ago. Section 3. The system audit. Okay, so how do we fix this? We obviously can't delete our childhoods, so we have to audit our triggers. I want to walk you through an exact step-by-step exercise you absolutely must complete before your next trade. Step 1, identify the trigger. Let's just say it's market volatility. Step 2, map it to a childhood memory. Ask yourself, when did I feel this exact panic or maybe this exact thrill about money as a kid? And then step 3, separate the emotion from the 2026 market data. Literally draw a hard line in your mind between the feeling of being a scared 7-year-old and the spreadsheet showing today's actual corporate earnings. Ultimately, your reaction to a 2026 market correction says way more about your past than your financial future. This audit, it's the only way to separate inherited fear or inherited recklessness from cold, hard market data. It forces you to acknowledge that the panic you're feeling right now, it isn't really about the S&P 500. It's about the arguments your parents used to have at the kitchen table. Section 4. Recompiling the code.
The absolute first tool in recompiling your code is to implement a neutrality period. So what is this? Well, it's a forced buffer zone, a strict window of time, maybe 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, designed specifically to bypass your old emotional hardware before you are allowed to execute a trade. When the urge to panic sell or greed buy hits, this period acts as a circuit breaker. It gives your logical brain the time it needs to boot up and completely shut down that childhood script.
Once that circuit is broken, you rely on your new investment policy statement. This document has three really vital jobs. First, to manually override your childhood biases. Second, to align perfectly with your 2026 financial goals. And third, to base all decisions strictly on current logic. When you feel that phantom itch, you don't trust your gut. You trust the policy statement you wrote when your brain was in a clear, logical state. By doing this, you are permanently recompiling your financial code.
Which brings us to a final, pretty crucial question for you to consider today. Will your next trade be built on 2026 logic or a 20-year-old survival instinct? Because the blueprint you inherited doesn't have to be the blueprint you use to build your future. By auditing your triggers and implementing that neutrality period, you can finally stop reacting to the past. So challenge yourself to rewrite that code starting today and take the first real step toward true financial freedom. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.